Good morning. Welcome to another Childhood Week Assembly. It's good to be with you. We begin as usual with our liturgy. In the beginning, when God created all things, he said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Let your light shine. God is light, and in him there is no darkness. Let your light shine. Jesus said, "I am the light of the world. Let your light shine." Well, today we're going to think about the flying problem. But before we start thinking about that, I wonder if you've ever had a problem and how you've solved it. I like this picture, we've shown it before. Somebody with a problem, thinking about the ways that they might be able to do it. Maybe they've seen somebody else have a similar problem and been inspired by that. Maybe somebody else is going to help them with their problem. And then they have this light bulb moment about how they are going to solve it. Well, the flying problem, that's been a problem for thousands of years because man has seen birds fly up in the sky, but somehow was never able to fly himself and really wanted to do so. We're going to think a little bit about the story of how man and woman came to be able to fly. Have you ever looked up in the sky and seen these lines in the sky? They're wispy lines, and they're created by the stream that's left by aeroplanes zigzagging across the sky, thousands of feet above us. It's only been about 100 years since we have been able to fly. On August the 25th in 1919, the first flight, the first international flight, went from London to Paris. So it's been the 100th anniversary of that quite recently. And you can see the aeroplane here with some people in it waiting to fly. But long before that flight took place, mankind has really been longing to fly and experimenting and looking for inspiration. The first kite was created in China about 2,500 to 3,000 years ago. And people were seeing how the air would catch the material of the flight. And then we have the steam-powered pigeon, something created by a Greek philosopher called Archytas 2,500 years ago. A steam-powered pigeon. And mankind continued to think, how could they fly? What was the skill? What were the key features of flight that they could learn from? You may have heard of Leonardo da Vinci. He was a famous artist, but he was also a brilliant mathematician. And he created designs for flying machines and parachutes almost 500 years ago. These are some of his drawings and his notes. Here's the man in the parachute. And then in 1783, a hot air balloon was flown across Paris for the first time. Dear me, I've written Parish, and I meant Paris, by the Montgolfier brothers. And then we've got here a man called Otto Lilienthal. He was known as the Glider King, and he spent many years trying to experiment with gliding, flying like a bird. You can see how he's kind of almost dressed up with wings. People have been trying to fly gliders since about 1850s. But really what they wanted to do was have a power engine that would fly a machine so that a person or many people could be part of that flight. The machine would be heavier than air and yet still be able to fly because of the power of the engine. There were many, many people who tried and experimented to make an aeroplane that could move itself forward and carry a human being. But the most famous people of all were the Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville, American brothers. And they solved the flying problem. And I want to share with you a video. It's from British Pathé, which is a film clip. So you'll see that it's very scratchy and black and white, but it will show you this first flight that took place. I think that was fantastic. It's amazing seeing it, the original footage, the original photographs and film of that event. The Wright brothers had been spending several years trying to solve that flying problem. And they'd thought about bicycles and balance, and that was so important. And for those 4 years before that flight took place in 1903, they'd tested kites and gliders using what they'd known from what previous people had achieved. And then on the morning of that day, December the 17th, they'd travelled over 700 miles to try out their new aeroplane called Flyer One. They did 4 flights that day. The first one, they hardly got any distance at all. But by the end of the day, the aeroplane had been up for 59 seconds and they'd managed to fly about 260 meters. That's over 2 football pitches. It was a real success. They'd learned lots from that first flight, but they didn't stop there. In the next year, not only did they fly another aeroplane, but they could control it and they flew it around their home. And then the year after that, they created another one in 1905. It nearly flew 25 miles and reached up to 15 meters off the ground. And by 1909, they were selling their aeroplanes to the US military. It's amazing, isn't it, when you think 1909, they were flying machines like this. And yet 60 years later, man was able to fly to the moon and back. That's staggering, isn't it? In 60 years, what an amazing achievement. Well, problems come in all shapes and sizes. The Wright brothers solved their flying problem. They were inspired, weren't they, by what other people had done, by the kites of the Chinese and the gliders, the drawings of Da Vinci. They were inspired to have a go themselves, and they used that research to help themselves. And when they'd flown, others were inspired by them. And it's amazing just to think about the progress that's been made. They worked well together, didn't they, to solve that flying problem. And this week, we're going to think a little bit about how we can solve problems. Are there other people that we can be inspired by? Can we learn anything from the way other people have done things? I wonder who helps you solve your problems. What problems have you got that you want solving? Maybe let's just have a time of reflection. We can think about maybe the things that we are wanting to achieve and who might help us. Dear God, we're thankful for people and inventions that have made such a positive impact on our world. We're thankful for the example of the Wright brothers who worked together to achieve what seemed impossible. May we work together at school and at home to be able to solve the problems that we face. Amen. And we thank God that He is our Father and is always there with us, walking alongside, as it were, to help us with anything that we are concerned about. And so we say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And so we're now going to think a little bit about those children who have achieved Child of the Week. Maybe they've been inspired by somebody else to do something better than they have done before. Maybe they've been inspired by their teacher, or just they've had that inner resource for themselves. But whatever it is, we celebrate with them, because they're people who have shown our school values. In year 1, we have Elena in Miss Berman's class and Blake in Miss Marsden's class. Well done. Into year 2, Miss Franklin has chosen Holly, and Miss Jakes and Miss Walker have chosen Taryn as their child of the week. A big well done to Leo in Mrs. Epps and Miss Paul's class, and to Scarlett in Miss Croft's class. And moving on into year 4, Ursula has been chosen by Miss Lefebvre and Abigail by Mr. Wright. In year 5, the child of the week for Miss O'Donoghue is Amelie, and Patrick is child of the week chosen by Mr. Boyer. And finally in year 6, Natalia has been chosen by Miss Greenhill and Jamie by Mr. Nile. A really big well done to all of you, and I'll see you a bit later on to bring round your certificates. And so we come to the end of our Child of the Week assembly. Go in the light and peace of Jesus, in the name of Christ. Amen. I hope you all have a really good week.